If you have been living under a rock for the past 3 days, then sit up in your seat and lean forward because the trade deadline just ended and it was... Alright, I mean, it wasn't no, if you're reading this, it's too late, but at least it wasn't, and honestly, never mind. There were a lot of transactions that's happened in the past few days, though, and quite a few were a bit interesting. So before we get started, like and subscribe. It would mean the world to us. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and let's just get straight into it. These are the winners and losers of the NBA trade deadline. Alright, so this is my third time recording this video because every single time I write a script or get something recorded, another trade happens that completely changes my takes on the previous thing I was talking about. So this is the final video, completely off script. I'm trying to get in my Kenny Beecham bag. Won't be as good, but you know, I gotta get better. This is just straight winners and losers, what I think about every team who made a transaction this trade deadline, and I'm gonna start off with the Knicks. Huge winners. They've been making money moves this entire NBA season. They started off trading RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and a second-round pick to the Toronto Raptors, and in return they got OG Anunoby, Malachi Flynn, and Precious Achiuwa. Since they made that trade, they have gone 16-3 at the time of recording. They are the 3rd seed in the East. They have just looked exceptional. And the reason I liked this trade when it originally happened was because I thought they gave up 2 players that just didn't fit the team, and in return they got maybe one of the best 3-and-D players in the league. And then they compounded on that by just a few hours ago trading for Bogdanovich and Alec Burks. A few hours ago, the Knicks traded Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn, Quentin Grimes, Ryan Arcidiacono, and 2 future second-round picks for Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovich. The Knicks are currently tied for the 3rd seed with the Milwaukee Bucks. And I mean, just looking at the rest of the East, you have the Boston Celtics, who I will never put money on them. I like to look at championship contenders from the standpoint of, would you put your paycheck on that team to win a championship or to win a game in the playoffs? You know, I'm not putting any bread on the Celtics. I'm not putting any bread on a Doc Rivers led team. Not putting any money on the Cavs with a small ass backcourt. Even though I get annoyed because they are constantly underrated, I myself am not putting any money on the Miami Heat. I'm sorry, I'm not putting bread on something I don't understand, like Heat culture. Someone please tell me what it is and I will shiv my tomb, but what is it? And then the rest of the East is just rife with inexperience. Like the Knicks, now that they have Alec Burks, Bogdanovich, and OG Anunoby to go with the rest of their solid roster, the Knicks have just as much a chance as anyone to make the NBA Finals in the East. Now this is obviously ignoring Julius Randle. They need to get something out of this man. 20 points on slightly below average efficiency and solid defense is really all they need. But if they can get anything out of Julius Randle, which is a big if, just go look at his basketball reference and click that playoffs tab and have like a throw a bucket next to you. But if they can get anything out of him, am I putting bread on the Knicks? I don't know. Either way, Knicks big winners this trade deadline. The only people that really gave up were people that didn't fit what they were trying to do anyways, or people that honestly just weren't even getting minutes and they only gave up 3 seconds. Like, Knicks, this was not the Knicks I grew up with. Why are you guys making all these intelligent moves? And you know, we can just shift directly into the Raptors because I'm gonna be honest, I'm giving them an inconclusive because I have no idea what they are doing. They started off this season, transaction-wise, by trading away OG Anunoby, as I just said. I won't rehash the exact terms of the trade. They then traded Pascal Siakam to the Pacers for Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, Kira Lewis, 2 first-round picks, and then a conditional first-round pick from the Pacers. So I'm thinking, okay, they finally started their rebuild. And to be honest, I think they did pretty good in the trades they made, given the state their assets were in. They were both expiring contracts. Getting this much out of them is pretty decent. So I'm finally like, okay, Raptors are finally doing a rebuild. And then just this morning, they trade for Spencer Dinwiddie from the Nets. They give up Dennis Schroeder and Thaddeus Young. That's a little head scratching, but I mean, it kind of makes sense if you think Spencer Dinwiddie is going to be better on your team. You can build him up as an asset, trade him later for a first round pick, whatever you think you can get for him. Dennis Schroeder, Thaddeus Young, obviously not in your long-term plans. But then they traded for Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji from the Jazz, which I don't hate, but but they gave up a first round pick to get them. Like, I don't understand. Are they making moves to win, or are they making moves to tank? Because to me, it feels like they're trying to have it both ways almost. Maybe they're looking at the asset of Ochai Agbaji, because I did say in a recent video, proven talent or young prospects that are already in the NBA and have proven that they're at least good NBA players. I always want to value that more than actual first round picks. And you know what? When I look at it from that standpoint, I don't exactly hate it, because Otto Porter Jr. isn't anything crazy. Kira Lewis is tracking to be a bust at this point in time. And Ochai Agbaji, I mean, he's not having the greatest sophomore or junior season. I don't know exactly which, but I mean, he's looking like he's going to be a pretty solid player. And I played against him in high school, so I want to see him thrive. He gave me like the most lackadaisical 28 you could ever give. But you know what? I flipped my viewpoint on what the Raptors are doing just talking about it. Even though I do feel like they should have gone for that rebuild sooner, I think they did pretty solid. Ochai Agbaji, I think he'll turn out to be a pretty good 3-and-D player. RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly have been performing great since the trade. And Kelly Olynyk, I mean, you'll probably be able to get a first rounder out of him in the offseason. So yeah. Next, we have the Mavs that were surprisingly active. I'ma stay neutral on the Mavs. They tried at least. They tried, bless their heart. But I'm just not in love with these trades. For the first trade we'll go over, this happened just a few hours ago. The Mavs traded Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a 2027 first round pick for PJ Washington. I don't like this trade. I don't think Seth Curry has really done anything for the Mavs this season, so that's not a big loss. But I mean, Grant Williams is a pretty solid 3-and-D player, and you're giving him up for PJ Washington, who I just don't know if he fits this team. I don't know. PJ Washington is in that weird role positionally for me where I don't really like him at the 5, and there's no way he can really play the 3. He's not exceptional from 3. He has a decent vertical, but laterally he's not quick. He's not a great defender. He's 6'7" and plays power forward center, which should tell you a lot. And you gave up Grant Williams for him, which is he may be your best defensive wing, probably Derrick Jones Jr., but at least he's up there. And I mean, Grant Williams isn't like the savior of the Mavs, but I mean, he was passable, and you gave him up for PJ Washington, who I'm just not sure about the fit. And then on top of that, you gave up a first round pick. Like, I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of this trade. And then on top of that, the Mavs traded Richaun Holmes and their 2024 first round pick from the Thunder to get Daniel Gafford. Daniel Gafford is a very solid player. He's very good. He was one of the role players that I wanted to get traded to an actual playoff team. But I mean, is he that much of an upgrade from Derek Lively? Like, they're the same type of player for me. I don't mind getting Daniel Gafford. Him splitting minutes with Derek Lively isn't a huge deal to me. My issue is you gave up a first round pick for a center when, in my opinion, you really needed to give up those assets for wing players. So I don't mind the trades themselves, like asset-wise. A first-round pick and Richaun Holmes for Daniel Gafford, I don't know. I feel like that's about right. Similarly for PJ Washington, given that he's a young-ish player. But fit-wise, and also taking into account what I feel like the Mavs really needed, I think I'm going to put them as slight losers. Since trading for Luka Doncic, name the exceptional good move the Mavs have made. Not really anything, right? So I don't like this trade, and if history proves correct, I don't know, I don't think it'll work out. Next, we got the Pistons, and I'm actually going to put them in winners. Yes, the Pistons. Actual winners. They've made a lot of moves to actually improve the roster and not just full-on tank that I admire quite a bit. First off, let's get the mid ones out of the way. Trading away Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks to the Knicks and not getting a single first round pick or prospect that has any promise. Well, Quentin Grimes maybe, but he's having a pretty rough season. I just don't think the haul they got back for Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks, when people were talking about giving up multiple first round picks for Bojan last year, maybe not multiple, but at least one, I don't know, that's a bit low for me. And then I just saw they released Killian Hayes. Like, they couldn't trade him for a second or anything. They straight up released him when they were starting him at the beginning of the season. That's got to bring you down. But other than that, I don't know. I feel like the Pistons have made some pretty solid moves. So let's get the littler ones out of the way. On most teams, he'd be at the end of the bench, but on the Pistons, he's going to be a rotational player. And Daniel House, and the second round picks even out, and you gave up cash consideration. So you got a solid enough role player for your team. You got a really solid three-point shooter from the Jazz in Simone Fontecchio. No way I pronounced that correctly. And you did give up Kevin Knox and a second round pick and Gabriel Procida. Simone Fontecchio, if you don't know about him, which I definitely did not, he's a really solid small forward from the Jazz who's a really good three-point shooter. They also traded Monte Morris to the Timberwolves for Troy Brown Jr., Shake Milton, and a 2030 second round pick. And I just like to get this out of the way. I think this is a win for both teams. Getting a second round pick and two solid young-ish role players for Monte Morris, who hasn't really played at all this season, is a really solid trade asset-wise for the Pistons. They get good role players and a second-round pick for someone who hasn't really played yet. And then for the Timberwolves, for a team that I feel like will struggle a little bit in the playoffs due to lack of offensive playmaking, I think Monte Morris, if he can return to the form he was at last year, he'll be a significant plus for this team. So Timberwolves mini winner just because this is the only real trade they made. But back to the Pistons. So they received Troy Brown Jr., Shake Milton, Simone Fontecchio, Daniel House Jr. Like a couple weeks ago, I remember off the top of my head, it's not on this list for some reason. Traded away Marvin Bagley Jr. and Isaiah Livers and a couple seconds for Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala from the Wizards. So this trade deadline, they got a lot of really solid role players, in my opinion. A lot of shooting, which they desperately needed. And I like these trades because to me, it signals that they're finally putting in the effort to build around Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. While they did have a couple minuses with the Killian Hayes nonsense, I still don't mind what the Pistons did. And if anything, I kind of like it. So here you go, Pistons. Here's your win. I know y'all need those, so hold on to that, please. All right, we're gonna do a quick rapid fire for the last of these trades because I am very tired. So for the first 76ers, they traded Furkan Korkmaz, Marcus Morris, and 3 second-round picks to the Pacers for Buddy Hield. Really like this trade. 76ers need as much offense as they can get, especially with Joel Embiid out. And yeah, Buddy Hield fits on any team. And then they also traded Patrick Beverley to the Bucks for Cameron Payne and a second-round pick. Getting a pick out of Patrick Beverley at this stage of his career is pretty decent. Don't mind what the Sixers have done this trade deadline. On the Pacers side of things, they traded away Buddy Hield, got back Korkmaz, Morris, 3 second-round picks, and then they went ahead and traded Marcus Morris to the Spurs and a second-round pick for Doug McDermott, and I believe they did one more. They got Corey Joseph. I was a little confused by the Buddy Hield trade at first, but when I saw that he was on the last year of his deal, I figured, okay, Pacers were just trying to get something out of him, weren't planning on re-signing him, and yeah, they got a few seconds out of him on an expiring deal, got a decent enough role player. So I mean, I don't know if that's winner or loser because it's nothing crazy, but solid enough. So this is a 3-team deal between the Suns, Grizzlies, and Nets. The Suns received Royce O'Neal and David Roddy. Royce O'Neal from the Nets and David Roddy from the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies received future pick swaps and Yuta Watanabe from the Suns. And then the Nets received 3 future second-round picks and salaries to be determined. Don't really care about anybody but the Suns. I think they did a pretty good job getting Royce O'Neal, who's going to be behind Grayson Allen, probably their best role player. I mean, the Suns just keep finding ways to package together their assets and make trades, so good for them. Grizzlies, they made that trade, and then they traded away Xavier Tillman and got back Lamar Stevens and 2 second-round picks. And then earlier this week, I didn't talk about this trade, they traded away Steven Adams to the Rockets for Victor Oladipo and 3 second-round picks. Getting picks out of those 2 guys is pretty decent, especially Steven Adams, who's been injured all year, and I hope they're happy with Bismack Biyombo playing 48 minutes a game. The Bucks acquiring Patrick Beverley for Cameron Payne and a second round pick. Like, they did need defense, but I don't know. Patrick Beverley's not at the point in his career where I think like, oh, Patrick Beverley's on this team, he's gonna carry this defense, you know? Like, he's a decent enough defender, but he's not carrying your entire guard rotation's defense. I was hoping the Bucks would go out and get someone else, but I mean, Beverley doesn't hurt, so. Also, I just found out that in that Nets-Raptors trade, the Raptors are going to release Spencer Dinwiddie. So the Nets in that trade received Dennis Schroeder and Thaddeus Young, and the Raptors received Spencer Dinwiddie and no other assets. And they're cutting Spencer Dinwiddie right away. I mean, yeah, Dennis Schroeder had more left on his deal, but it was literally 1 more year, and he was only making $12 million. I don't understand this trade. I think that trade is weird now. Raptors still did all right in my book, though. And last but not least, Thunder add Gordon Hayward from the Hornets, and they gave up Vasile Micic, Trey Mann, Davis Bertans, and 2 second-round picks. As a Thunder fan, I don't really mind this. I think Gordon Hayward can be solid on this team. We did give up a bit much to get him, but when you're looking at the list, it's not really anyone that was super important to the rotation. And yeah, I feel like Gordon Hayward, assuming health, which is a big assumption for him, I definitely feel like he can help us out in a playoff series, playing like 15 to 20-ish minutes per game, maybe. Yeah. So that's it. That's all we got. I am so tired. Hopefully this video gets out when I said it would. If you've listened this far, then go ahead and like and subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and it would mean the world to us if you joined us on that journey. As always, stay sweaty, ladies and gentlemen.